All right. Welcome, Gene and Brett. So this is a discussion of a Winter Lights event at MSH. Who's going to start? You're not looking very wintry, Gene. Much more summery there.
Go ahead, Brett. You want to start?
All right, Brett, live and in person. We'll start. All right, Brett,
Live
tell
and
us
in
about
person
the...
right here. This is a little surreal. It's the magic of television right now. We have Gene on the big screen and me over here. So the Winter Lights event obviously was something that we had a lot of fun, a lot of success doing. I thought that it was a great town event, and Gene and I want to continue that again this year. We definitely, again, just like we did from Halloween to the Winter Lights, and from now this year to next year, we're looking at a lot of the improvements that we're going to make. We did talk to the town or the residents that we affected the most with the traffic. We talked to, Gene, what was the community that we talked to that was right there?
Well, it's the new development on Hospital Road. And then we also email exchange with a bunch of Pete's neighbors on the other side.
Yeah, and so met with a lot of them and talked to them about some of their opinions and some of their thoughts on some of the things, the improvements that we can make for them. And then we did sit down with Chief Garrett as well, went over a plan with her as far as traffic and what we can do. Some of the plans that we're looking at are a one-way to make Hospital Road a complete one-way to allow the traffic all the way through. We also wanted to improve our signage, signage to inform residents of what was going on, the dates of the event, and also to allow some sticker or something that the residents that were in that area could have on their car, their dashboard, so when they got up to the event that they would be allowed through in order to either cut back the other way to get to their homes or to cut through traffic to get to their homes the other way. So the biggest improvement was really the sticker idea, was to create something that a resident could quickly show somebody to say, hey, I need to get through to my house. And that was something that Gene and I want to implement again this year. But yeah, the other thing that we're looking for tonight is an extended schedule that we're looking for the Winter Lights. I think one of the biggest things that we found was that there were a lot of people. You know, the same idea for when we experienced with Halloween was when we did one night for Halloween. Everyone showed up on that night. Same thing with Winter Lights. It stacks it up. I think that there's a lot of people that are going to want to come to this event again. So we're looking at an extended schedule, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, correct me on the dates here because I'm missing them.
Wednesday, December 8th through Sunday, December 18th. Or is that 19th?
I think it's the 19th.
Sorry. I think you're right.
What hours on those?
19th, 8th to the 19th. Thanks, Brett.
No problem.
And what hours on those days?
Same hours, 5 to 9 p.m.
And which days? 7 days a week?
7 days. From that range, we'd be doing every day. So 12 consecutive days.
12 days of Christmas kind of thing.
Of Winter Lights.
From the 8th to the 19th. So
Yes.
5 to 9 p.m. And would this be drive-through and walk-through? Like, could people come in and walk around?
Just drive-through. And that was one of the things that we had talked about with Chief as well, is just the idea of having people walk around creates a whole nother issue and a whole nother problem with the event. Staffing for that, getting people to make sure that you're not doing anything mischievous while they're walking around. So we just have a hard line that it's a drive-through event.
So does that mean that during that time there would be no walking access to the hospital hall? I mean,
Between 5 and 7 p.m., yes.
well, you said 5 to 9.
5 to
9.
9, yes. Sorry.
Essentially, we'd be closing the hospital to pedestrian traffic from 5 to 9 p.m. from the 8th to the 19th.
Yes.
It's probably dark anyway,
Yeah,
so
so
it'd be closed in any case. The only I don't think this is a complication, but it's a potential complication. I just don't think it'll manifest itself this year. Is that assuming we get responsive RFPs from the developers for the state hospital, the reason I don't think it's going to be a complication is we would need a special town meeting to approve the disposition of the land. So I don't think there's anything that would be going on in December that is likely to interfere or that would cause a problem. But at some point here, if we do in fact move ahead with redeveloping the property, well, we all have to start thinking about what developers might want to be doing, so.
I'm only laughing because you're going between me and the TV.
Yeah, well, I'm
I'm
trying
not
to.
really sure where to look.
I'm trying to keep Gene involved in this conversation, that's all.
Right. We all did get the memo that it was gray suit night, though, here at
Yes.
at Town Hall.
Right,
So, all right, Pete,
We all
questions,
did.
questions, comments?
Comment is that I noticed that the lights are still up from last year. I think it would be good to take the lights down when your event is over, rather than just leaving them up year-round.
Okay. It was something that we talked about was, I think we worked with John when we were talking about this, is that it's a huge cost to get someone to come in and take the lights up and down. And so we wanted to make sure that we took the lights off where people couldn't reach them and couldn't get to them. They're obviously powered down. There's no power in there. And so it was one of the things we had talked about was leaving them up so that we didn't have to incur that cost again. It was roughly about $7,500 to get someone to come in and take the lights up and down. So that's why they were up.
Yeah, that's a high cost.
Anything else, Pete?
No.
Yeah, Pete, just to respond to that, given that it's been up for 6 months, I assume we can hang in there for another 6 months on this go-around. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, I think they should come down, but, if you want to leave them up for another 6 months at this point, save $7,500 for whatever you guys are getting the money for. Where does the money go to?
So the money is going to go into expanding the lights. And so one of the big things that we talked about was the entrance and the exit being a large portion that was missed last time, right? So that $7,500, you can imagine we're talking about teaming up with another company, Available Light, that's going to come in and do a nice big display for us in the entrance and the exit of the entire winter lights. And so that $7,500 right now that we're saving there, we're putting it right back into the display and hoping to give a bigger display for people.
I would ask John Thompson, who's here, whether he cares, since he spends most of his time at the state hospital and is in charge of the building and grounds.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.
Well, need the microphone. There you go. We're out of practice here.
That's right. That's right. Thanks. Hi, everybody. I ran into an issue with the remaining lights because I needed to prune a lot of the trees because what I was trying to do was reduce the number of branches that were falling. And we've had a lot of wind. This past winter was extremely windy. I don't know why, but there was a lot of wind, and we still get a lot of wind. So I had pruned the trees in January, and having the lights there, I had to have the tree pruners just work with them and around them. So that was an issue. And then some of them have actually come released from the trees, so they're hanging down and flying in the breeze. So I had to cut some of them. So if you can take them down after this event, I think it would make sense. I don't think, again, who knows what will happen next spring as far as development goes, but I think it would be prudent to probably just take them down after this one. Yep.
Yeah, and I wasn't asking you, Pete, about a permanent policy. I was just saying, given this cycle, we're 6 months into the next year, do we want to force them to come down now? I wasn't suggesting permanent.
Yeah. Gus, any questions or comments? If there's any questions or comments from members of the public on the Zoom, just put it in the Q&A, and we'll address those. Any comments from anyone here in person about this? All right. While I'm waiting to see if there's any comments on the Zoom, I don't have a particular concern about it. I would say, is it your plan that you would have a police detail every night
Yeah.
for the whole length of this process?
Yeah, there's, I believe, 5 or 6 officers that we're looking. You're saying 4. So it's one at the entrance at 27, it's one down at the back, and then we have one on site, and I think we're looking at one more at the entrance where you're turning into the office. And then Chief Garrett was talking about having maybe one more officer if they had a float, or put them in a position where they might be most useful. So those were the things that we were looking at.
Any other changes planned for this year from last year, other than more lights and more stuff?
I don't think so. I think that was mostly what the biggest ask was for us, was more, please. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking for, is adding more to it. I think the radio station's coming back, so we'll have another radio station there. And I think we're going to get more community members to design on the buildings, and just like they did last time. So it'll be, a bigger community event, a bigger event for people to come and see. So we're excited about it.
Will you target, Laura, I'm thinking you're going from, how many days was it last? Was it 3 nights?
3 nights.
Or
So 4 nights? I couldn't remember. It was 4. It was 4
it was
nights?
4, and we had a snowstorm and canceled one.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
This is entirely your call as far as it's a business decision, but either tripling or quadrupling the number of nights, even if you doubled the participation from the local community, you got to, it seems like for the amount of hours you're open, you're going to get a lighter crowd each night, maybe except for the weekend. So my head then went to whether you're going to promote this more broadly. I'm thinking about what happened in Halloween when we got on the radio and suddenly everyone in southeastern Massachusetts that didn't have anything better to do decided they would come see the display at this
Yeah,
hospital.
Absolutely.
In this case, you're you're tripling or quadrupling the number of nights, and I'm wondering whether you're going to actively promote this on a, maybe not a, eastern half of the Massachusetts basis, but more of a regional basis, or.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Is we're looking to expand the people that come. I think the difference between what happened to Halloween and what is going to happen now is purely planning and preparation. Mm-hmm. Halloween was me, Amanda, Audrey, and 12 kids from the library that set up something. We expected 80 people to show up because that's what we had the night before, and then we had all of Massachusetts and southern New England showed up. I think someone from Maine came and drove through. So it was nuts. Like, we didn't expect that. But this time here, that gave us a great experience for how to deal with traffic, how to plan for those things. We saw huge improvements from Halloween to Winter Lights that time. And I think that working with Gene and Chief Garrett, we've made some massive changes, and we're going to make even more improvements that make us feel comfortable that we can take on those bigger nights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of it's going to depend on how good it turns out to be, right?
Yeah.
I remember, fondly remember sitting in traffic for an hour to go through the Christmas display that was in Millis, at the family's house in Millis that owned Imperial Cars in Mendon. Yeah. And you'd really go, and it would run for most of December. And pretty much any time you went, you were in line for an hour. And I'm not going to hold you all to that standard for this year.
Should, because that's what it's going to be.
I think your meeting with the neighbors might not go so well if it turns into being, if your people are lined up for an hour in the car. That's the only concern that I have, is that if it does become a really big crowd and it's every night for 12 nights, that's a pretty big imposition on the neighborhood. Obviously, if people are coming in off of 27 onto Hospital Road and kind of going out the other way, that mitigates a lot of it, because you're not blocking up the Harding Street Hospital area. So I think your point about planning and preparation is good, and it's worth a shot to see how it goes. But that's my only concern and hesitation, is that would be a lot of nights. Yep. And I would imagine that the neighbors there on Causeway Street in Millis weren't all that thrilled, because you couldn't get out of your driveway for most of the month of December between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m.
I saw Gene just had a comment too, just so we.
Yeah, you asked if we had additional asks. Well, one option with having more nights is where we got backed up was in the beginning of the nights, so we could reduce the number of tickets available in the early first hour or two, so that there isn't the backup that we had experienced this past year, because we could spread people out over more nights. And then the other ask was, out of conversation with the neighbors too, was if the DPW could put their signage up, like on 27 the week prior, to let people know We had people getting stuck in the traffic and waiting in line and then winding into the hospital, but they didn't know what they were doing, didn't have tickets, were totally surprised by it, but were just sort of stuck in the traffic. So I think there's, those are some other mitigating things we can do if we can have signage out in advance so that people know what's coming.
And the final piece that we did too was talking to Chief was moving where we took the tickets and allowing more people onto the property and off the road. So that was another part of it too. Was if you can imagine, we took tickets right at the entrance. We're going to take tickets up further where it kind of triangles out. And so if someone does have a problem, one of the things that we saw was like people had all sorts of little issues where it was like, you scan their ticket and that takes 5 seconds, but then they got to tune their radio and that takes another 15. And now you planned on someone driving up and taking 5 seconds, and now you expand that out and you're taking an hour of time. So we want to move people up. And that way there, when someone does have an issue, you can either send them straight and they can come back around and join the traffic, or you can send them right in. So that was another plan that we had as well to help speed up the traffic.
There is a lot of area on the hospital grounds where you could have the line waiting off the street. I had a couple other thoughts as we're talking about this. One was that maybe you should talk to the chief about having one way in and out from 27, and then that would just block off Hospital Road by the hospital so that anybody going to Winter Lights comes off of 27 and goes back to 27, and then that would have zero impact on the neighbors down towards town.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I don't know if did you guys ever talk to Kevin Meehan about all of his displays? He's the man from Millis.
Gene
Working
was
on
the
him.
one who spoke to them.
Good.
Ryan?
Great. If there's nothing else, we had no comments from the Zoomers. So, Gus, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the second annual winter lights up at the Medfield State Hospital running from December 8th to December 19th, subject to approval of the police chief and adequate coordination in managing traffic.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, Brett. Thank you,
Thank
Gene.
you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right, next appointment, Maurice Goulet, Director of Public Works, requests that we award the general contract bid for the water treatment plant project to Bizco Building Systems Incorporated with a base bid of $8,018,780.66 and an alternate A1 bid of $260,362.33, and authorize Town Administrator Christine Truweiler to sign the notice of award. Welcome, Mo.
Good evening.
It's nice to see you in person.
Yeah, I know it, huh? So at the annual town meeting, our water treatment plant was approved, one of the warrant articles. The project went out to bid. Bizco Building Systems out of Fall River, Massachusetts was the low responsive and responsible bidder. Their references were checked by our engineers, also their bonding capacity, their insurance, all checked out. We did have recommendations from the Permanent Planning and Building Committee, as well as the Water and Sewage Board, the DPW, and the engineering firms that are affiliated with the project. We're asking for the Board of Selectmen to sign off on the award for the project, and that the contracts for this project for the engineers as well as the general contractor, Bizco, will be at the July 13th Selectmen's meeting.
Okay. Pete, questions, comments?
No.
I'm fine with moving ahead with the contract, but in looking through it, I realized I don't have a good sense of what references for something like this might typically sound like. So I recognizing there's a big difference in the bid price. So that, in a sense, is an easy decision. I was a little concerned with the references were lukewarm in some cases, not all cases, but they were a little lukewarm. And I was a little sensitive to the size of this project relative to, and this was all called out in the documents you sent, so it wasn't like I was smart. I was just reading what it said. That translates to me into a risk factor. And so the real question I have is, are you comfortable that recognizing what those two things showed up like here, that you're going to go into this not finding yourself getting sucked into some sort of a quagmire, or either tying up your time? I guess we have some room to play with. If there were problems between this bid and the others, there'd be some room to still be ahead. But it didn't leave me with a warm and fuzzy feeling from a quality standpoint that we were in a good spot.
So, I mean, your concerns are valid as far as, they're a company that's up and coming, and that they've worked on a lot of smaller jobs that, not to this extent, but they do have the bonding capacity for it. Our engineers are convinced that they've worked with them on different projects, and that they're a reputable company, that they're confident that they'll be able to do the work. We had we had a little bit of a meeting yesterday with them. They seem to be right on the ball, being prepared, ready to go, and understanding of the the materials that are out there and what to expect. And I mean, we feel comfortable. I think we have a good engineering team that's on that, as well as our staff. And I think I think the scope of the project isn't as complicated as some of the other plants. I mean, the equipment is expensive, but that's being handled by other companies as well. So the GC, I think, is, I think they should be responsible enough to handle this project.
Okay. And then that's fine. My only advice, not that you need it, would be that in getting set up with this contractor, I put a real emphasis on their communications procedures and expectations around communications. That seemed to be where the critical comments all seem to be, in terms of communications, and not even as much responsiveness as just hard to get a hold of and that kind of stuff. So, okay, that's my only concern. Ready?
We have a quick question from the public, from Chris Potts, 7 Curb Street. She wants to know what the alternate costs are for.
The alternate costs are for the sewer line to bring out to Elm Street to get rid of the waste from that treatment plant.
From the treatment plant, okay. And Gus covered some of the questions on the recommendations. I guess I wasn't quite as concerned as Gus was, but I think the adjective is probably correct. But it didn't seem to be in the quality of the work, right? So it seemed like the quality of the work was there. And you answered my other question, was going to be, how complicated is this project on a scale of 1 to 10, right? It's one thing if you're going to a larger project that's a lot more complicated, as opposed to a larger project that's just bigger, but at a similar level of complication. So it sounds like this is sort of at least within the wheelhouse of what they've done. Are there going to be other costs? I think what we approved at town meeting was $12 million.
Correct.
And so this is substantially under that. Are there other costs that are not covered by these contracts that we anticipate that would fit
So
within the $12 million?
the cost of the $8 million is for construction.
Mm-hmm.
We also have engineering costs. We also have contingencies. So that brings it up to the $12 million.
Okay.
So, but with those contingencies, it doesn't mean that all that money is going to be used up. So as much as we can, we're going to cut down the price of this project.
Okay. And this was still, I think, just looking back over the history of this discussion, this was still lower than we expected for construction.
Correct.
So that's good news. We'll take it. All right. Looks like we have no more questions in the Zoom room. Any questions here? All right, we'll take a motion.
Okay, I move that we award the general contract bid for the water treatment plant project to Bizco Building Systems, Inc., with a base bid of $8,018,780.66 and alternate A1 bid of $260,362.33, and that we authorize Town Administrator Christine Trierweiler to sign the notice of award.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
And I voted aye on that as well, just in case you didn't catch that. All right. Next, John Thompson to discuss maintenance of the Charles River Overlook at the Medfield State Hospital, laundry parcel remediation, and MSH update. Welcome, John Thompson.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I know you have a full agenda tonight, so I'll try to move through the things that I want to cover with the hospital. First thing is the conditions at the Overlook, and I think everybody here has helped and worked in the creation of this park. It's about a $7 to $10 million park that we all worked hard on between 2012 and today. I think Nick's the only person here that hasn't participated in creating this park. And for DCAM, who is the owner of the property, they've had a lot of turnover. We haven't had as much turnover as DCAM has had. And as a result of that turnover, they've neglected to take care of this beautiful property that we all worked so hard on. I mean, we all had sleepless nights over this for 5 years, just trying to create something for the public. And it was all volunteer work. It's enjoyed by people from the whole Metro West area. And for some reason, DCAM is ignoring the agreements that they made with the town of Medfield to take care of this property. And that's important not only to the public users, but also to the environment there. On your part of your agenda package tonight, I noticed that the lawn mowing and cleanup services for the 90 acres of the hospital last year was under $50,000. DCAM doesn't take care of the Overlook Park with 2 acres. It's only 2 acres. I'm managing 90 and cutting it for under $50,000. So I don't understand why the state has failed to fulfill the obligations that they made with us as a town to keep that park clean. And one of the reasons that I lose sleep over with the hospital is the public safety. I want people that enjoy the hospital to feel safe there, not to feel that there's overgrown areas that people could hide in, or places where animals, there's coyotes along the river and so forth. Public safety has got to be first and foremost. And the Overlook Park right now is not in a condition where I feel like it could be safe there because of the height of the vegetation. And Mike, you came out and looked at it with me and Bill about a month ago. DCAM hasn't done anything since then. I mean, at this point, you can't even see the river now from the lower parking area. It's completely out of sight. One of the points that I made in mediation was that they needed to prevent the growth of trees on the capped area, because if a tree tips over, the root ball peels up the cap, and that causes the potential for erosion or also preferential stormwater infiltration into the ground and through the contaminants and into the groundwater. So what's happening now is there's mature trees that are starting to grow on the actual cap, on the waste that's capped. And that's not acceptable. They wouldn't be able to do that in any other place where wastes are capped in Massachusetts. There's loads of places where they've done the same thing and they keep the grass cut very low. An example would be that golf course along Route 93 when you're going into Boston. That's a capped landfill that DCAM was involved in. And every single blade of grass is cut down below your ankles. So I don't know why they're ignoring it, but I think the town needs to be aggressive with them to come up with what is their schedule and dates for actually maintaining this property that they agreed with the town to do certain things. So just wanted to alert you to that. Christine and I and Bill have a meeting with them coming up. I think it's very important that we make it clear that they have signed up for certain things, including through the Conservation Commission permitting process that obligates them to take care of that property. So that's the first, what I wanted to cover first.
Pete?
Questions?
Well, and I think that when they did mow, they actually mowed down a lot of the plantings that the garden continuum had installed there,
yes.
Unfortunately, so that
Did.
it's a big job to actually get it back to
And
the
they've
baseline.
promised us several times that they would go back and revisit that. In fact, part of the order of conditions with the Conservation Commission obligates them to go back and inspect those plantings and make sure of ensure their survivability. And they haven't done that. And the rain gardens that are supposed to collect storm water and purify the water before it goes into the water table are completely overgrown with invasive weeds. And so, and they've made these promises that they're gonna go, repair that, but they haven't. They just haven't done it. So I think we need to ask them, what is their timeline for actually bringing this back to the way, the way we agreed for it to be left. The basic units out there are below the gas line is called the replication area. That's where they replicated the wetlands, and they were supposed to inspect the replication, make sure that the plants survived. Above the gas line is called the relocation area. That's where the waste materials were brought up out of the floodplain and relocated. The relocation area below the gravel walkway, between the gravel walkway and the gas line, is the area that I'm talking about that they haven't maintained, that should have plantings and should be cut. It's full of invasives at this point, yeah. Yep. So that was first. And
The other question?
any other questions?
Well, it's not a question, I guess it's just a comment. I was there on Sunday, and I have a new app on my phone from Merlin that actually has a bird identifier by call. And there was a yellow warbler in those things that you want to cut down. So I was fascinated by being near a yellow warbler that I couldn't see, but
Yeah.
Cornell told me it was there.
The, incidentally, the Charles River Valley is a migratory pathway for birds. And so it's a huge amount of open space, and there's all kinds of different birds moving through there. It's a really interesting place. But when you can't see it, it's difficult because,
The other thing that we noticed when we were walking around was that somebody had actually crafted a trail through part of the wetlands from the
Yes.
power plant road up to the field above it.
yeah, that's a good point, Pete. That,
It was probably, I think, it might be bicycle people.
well, that's what we are concerned about, that they're not watching it and people are riding mountain bikes through there and making their own pathways on the cap area. And that's part of what they're supposed to be inspecting and responding to. So that would need to be
It's an issue down at the
prevented.
Holmquist property as well with
Yeah.
bicyclists making their own trails on the town land.
Yeah, I saw the path, and there's a path that goes down to the floodplain as well that probably shouldn't be there.
We'll just need a microphone, or you can go up there.
Further to that
Do you want
discussion.
to say who you are and where you
Yes,
live?
Bill Massaro, Evergreen Way. Part of the ramifications of what's happening with the die-off or cutting of the growth that was supposed to be there was, as part of the plan, was to put native plants that would effectively discourage people walking through them and creating their own paths. So with all of this stuff gone, all you've got growing there now are weeds, and no reason for anybody to, why would you take the long way around when it's so simple just to cut your way down and walk through this? And you can see it coming down from the benches on the top of the overlook down to, right down to the river. And again, it's all wrapped around. We had this wonderful plan from the garden continuum for, the plants and for ways to essentially channel people to use the correct paths that wouldn't impact the cap, wouldn't impact the environment and everything else. It all went south with everything dying and basically with DCAM dropping the ball on that. It's a shame.
So 2 more points, Mr. Chair. One is, in terms of the area that had the volatile organic chemicals in it, am I understanding correctly that the DCAM has agreed to dig those materials out and move them away?
That's the plan, is to excavate and remove them. They haven't told us date certain, but at this point, we think it's around mid-August.
Yeah,
Supposed to be June.
And it was supposed to be in June, correct?
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
They haven't answered our questions either, or our concerns about,
right. We submitted comments on that
March.
plan, and under the state regulation, they're supposed to respond to those comments within 20 days. So the town submitted comments the Massachusetts contingency plan says within 20 days, they're supposed to provide a written response to those comments, and they have not responded in writing. And that's a question, why, if I did that in my practice, I could lose my license. So
that would be another thing to ask them about then at
Yes.
this point. And then the last comment is, a lot of times the bureaucracies are very responsive to political input, so it might be helpful to have the state senator and the representatives send a letter in support of whatever we send.
yes, agreed. Okay.
Yes.
I'm trying to get my arms around something. John, this topic is about cutting, maintaining the overlook.
Yeah.
We have the laundry parcel cleanup, we have the road construction, and I gather we actually, I guess, could say we also have VOC removal. That what I'm looking at is saying, so there's actually 4 issues here. Maybe there's more, but for right now we have 4 issues. Going to DCAM with just one issue, which is you're not maintaining the overlook or you're not cutting the weeds down at the bottom, feels to me like not the right strategy for us. Because what you do is you yank the chain on this relatively small thing, and then you try to yank the chain on one of the bigger things. And I'm wondering whether we should be there's 2 questions I have. One, should we be driving more of a comprehensive discussion with DCAM around the full set of obligations? And then going along with that is recognizing that there has been turnover and there are new people there. I've only met them, I think, twice actually, and they seemed like nice enough people at that point. I'm trying to figure out whether what we need is a big hammer or whether what we need is a continued collaborative discussion on the comprehensive set of issues. And you all have been dealing more with, because if it's a big hammer, I don't think we ask for our representatives to send a letter. I think we ask for a meeting that our representatives are at. And we have a face-to-face discussion where if it's the big hammer that we need, then let's plan a big hammer.
Yeah, I agree with both of your points, Gus, in that I think we don't want to lose sight of the other important issues that they need to respond to us with. And I feel as if, we've been trying, notwithstanding COVID, but we've been trying for 3 or 4 years to get them to move in the right direction. And first it was we're new people, and then it was, well, we can't meet because of COVID. And so, Christine's reached out to the commissioner before, and we haven't got responses for meetings in that way. And so I think it is time to.
Although I think we should have the
Seriously.
meeting on Thursday and
Oh,
see
yeah,
how
absolutely.
Thursday goes
Yeah,
first,
I agree.
and then take an approach after that.
Okay.
Yes.
We've been writing letters, Christina's been writing letters since.
Microphone, please.
So we've written letters covering all of the issues, and we started with the collaborative effort that we had during the mediation. It broke down with the people, personnel changes and everything else, and we basically, and working with DEP as well, because I had contacted DEP about it, and who was surprised that we'd had such a great, unique relationship, and then now it had, gone south. But we covered all of our issues, and there's actually one more issue. There's the activity and use limitation, which essentially says this is what you can't do on top of the capped area. And we started working on that when we did the mediation and the settlement agreement, and we made our comments. And we're talking here 2014, and we got many of them answered. But then the new people at DCAM went and filed an AUL last December. With, I think, at least 2 major issues in it that they had ignored our last comments. So that's so much for the cooperation on the AUL. Every time there was a personnel change, we probably lost 6 months with the new people, sending them the documentation that said, this is the agreement we had. You would give us advance copies of things. Why aren't you giving them to us? Not aggressively or anything else, but just explaining, we understand you're new. Here are the requirements, here's what everybody signed, and still get answers the next go-round, or questions the next go-round of new people is, well, why do we have to send this to you? Why do we have to give you this advance notification or a pre-draft or pre-release review of things? So we keep going back and around in circles. I would say they haven't made one commitment in the last 3 years. You've already extended the access, the temporary access. It was supposed to be completed in 2019. We had assurances from 2 different levels of personnel, 2 changes of personnel, that it was going to be completed by 2019. You have, I think now that you're in the 2nd extension of that road, and in the end of 2021 you run out again. Now we, and I have, as a citizen and as a member of the PIP, I have been hounding them on the access road and on the laundry parcel. On the access road and the laundry parcel, when we started to make our comments on the proposed remedy, the new remedy for the laundry parcel, we got a letter from DCAM that said, oh, by the way, this is only for the laundry parcel. Don't talk about the other issues. Don't talk about, we'll discuss that later. Well, we have a meeting with them on Thursday. I would be very upset if I were, for example, would have raised the issue about the laundry parcel or the AUL or the access road. Laundry parcel should be the main topic, I would think, I would hope. So the other 2 issues. If I should raise those issues and the DCAM were to say, we'll talk about those later, I'm not going to be a happy camper. We need to get these things addressed. These things are all intertwined. Everything is intertwined. You talk about wanting to sell the property. So a developer, and I've explained to you before, that laundry parcel, based on the financial model that McCabe did, was 27% of the operating income for a developer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the laundry parcel, the next guy's got to scrounge to find that. How does he do it? And he's going to maybe do something we don't particularly like to make up for that, lost 27%. That's the first issue with the laundry parcel. Second issue is they have to remediate it, and they have to test it for 2 years. So they finish the remediation. They're driving across the property that you want to sell to a developer for 2 years with all of their samplings, quarterly sampling, all of their trucks, all of their, and if they don't get it, succeed, you never get the laundry parcel, and they're working on it forever, and they're driving across your property if they haven't done the road. So all these things are intertwined. Mm-hmm. You can't really say we don't want to talk about this or we don't want to talk about that. We have to talk about all these things together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a meeting scheduled for Thursday.
Thursday at 2:30.
We'll see.
Who's gonna be at the meeting?
I will be at the meeting, John, Bill, and Peg Stolfa.
Okay, but do we know who's coming from DCAM?
I don't know everybody's name now that they've changed.
The characters
The-
is probably Susan Rauch.
Susan will be here,
Jamie Matz,
and Jason will be
and
here,
Jason.
and I'm not sure if they're bringing somebody above Susan or not.
Well, they may bring one of the technical people too.
Yeah.
Possibly Frank Ricciardi from Western.
Weston and Sampson, yeah.
To discuss it, assuming they're going to discuss the
right.
laundry parcel.
So we'll know more about this at the meeting on Thursday. What else, John, do you have for us?
Okay, 2 other things that are,
Can I make just one
Oh, yeah, go ahead,
further
Gus.
comment on this? This may be a totally unimportant comment, but you talk about the grass being high down at the lower level to where you can't see the river. The overlook is a spectacular state resource, and part of leaving aside all the obligations, all the negotiations, all the contract agreements, if you simply looked at this from the standpoint of the state, it is an absolute spectacular resource. If you go there right now, first off, that dirt road where the parking lot is, I do see they regraded it so that the 1.5 holes are not there, and that big gap when you're trying to pull out of there
Yes.
is gone. But the bike rack
right.
is like you would be unable to put a bike into the bike rack because of everything that's overgrown the bike rack. It's more like props for viney weeds
And
that
incidentally,
can grow up
Gus,
the
at
spokes.
the top of that turnaround is a veterans park.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a veterans.
Right,
So-
and then the whole circle. I don't know if that was designed to be a rubbish catcher. Put it full of weeds, make it a depression, so the wind blows all the garbage into their rain garden.
I've taken a microwave
Yeah.
out of that.
Yeah, and so maybe this is irrelevant to the conversation on Thursday, but quite aside from all the obligations from a pure state standpoint, this is a spectacular state resource. Maybe it's that DCR is the only one that would care about that, but it's just not being managed even above and beyond commitments. It's
Right.
just a stupid way to run a spectacular resource. It's
There was
used
a lot,
a
there was a
lot.
lot of money spent
Yeah.
to bring that up to
Yeah.
where it was. And it's just sad that nothing's
That's
happened since
odd.
then.
One more comment.
Sure.
Microphone.
I would point out that we had to send a letter when personnel changed to remind DCAM that everybody even remotely attached to the cleanup and the construction of the overlook was more than happy to accept awards and kudos for the work having been accomplished. DCAM got an award from Charles River and from the the Environmental Business Council. And again, everybody was just thrilled and excited about it. And to get the new commissioner's attention, Christine basically wrote a letter that said, this is all the things we went through. These are all of the articles that talked about how wonderful it was and everything else, and you've dropped the ball. And this goes back almost 3 years that that letter was written.
Yeah, I remember.
So perhaps the way to get this moving is the newspapers were full of what a wonderful thing it was, how this was a unique, cooperation, how Medfield, pulled a rabbit out of the hat and got this thing done, which DCAM had never done before and everything else. Maybe it's time to get, and maybe I make a call to the guys that interviewed me from Commonwealth Magazine or from the Globe and get them to come back out and say, this is a wonderful thing that was done and this is what it looks like now. And maybe the new headline is, DCAM, has not lived up to their obligations.
So my suggestion, if we go down that path, first off, you're having a meeting on Thursday. That would be the first step. I do think there's an assessment that has to be made about, is this a motivation issue or is it a management issue within DCAM? And depending on which, if it's a motivation issue, then I think we have to be thoughtful about, okay, then what does it take to be a squeaky wheel? If it's a management issue where you're going to beat a dead horse, then we need to understand that and then figure out how to navigate the management issue. But,
Do understand, I will do what I have to do as a private citizen, not as a representative of the town.
yeah, but, of course.
That's how we got this in the first place, by the way.
I'm not arguing with you, Bill. On the other hand, the town should act with a degree of coherence in what it does. So if everybody's a freelancer, that doesn't give us traction, that's all.
Arms are open for new assistance. If I don't get it,
Thank you, Bill.
I will love the one I'm with.
Well, you didn't have a microphone, Bill, so that's I'm not sure that
It'll be in the-
particular word.
It'll be in the meeting minutes, don't worry.
John, anything else?
Yeah, two other things, somewhat quickly. I want to make a recommendation around the Hospital for Public Safety. When we did the movies with Coolidge Corner Theater, I was standing out by the trailer with Robert LaPlante, the detail officer, and we talked about how important it might be to put an AED at the trailer. And so because the numbers of people that go to the hospital property at any given time, I mean, they sold out that movie. There were 125 cars, and each of those cars had 4 to 6 people in them because it's by carload. It's about $60 or $80 a car. So you've got a couple of 300 people there of all different ages and backgrounds. And he and I talked about that might be a good thing to have, and that Wayne Solali is the person in the police department that is trained on the management of the AEDs throughout town. So I wanted to put that out there for your consideration. And two other things with that is I think it's important that DPW, there's 2 roads entering the hospital. One of them is Stone Gate. That's the one with the big stone gate that was built in 1900. That entrance I have sealed off. The main entrance that most people drive in is called Service Road. And I get a lot of trucks up there during the day that are trying to make deliveries of refrigerators to West Street. because West Street at the hospital comes up on their GPS. So they're driving around in the campus saying, where's the house that I gotta drop this refrigerator off at?
The circle
that.
behind the parking spot.
Might be
there.
why you found that microwave.
Yeah, I get that once a quarter. And so I think that DPW should put a sign out at the entrance, out in front of the trailer, when you turn into the road to go into the hospital, that, names that road. It's called Service Road. It is on Google, if you look it up. It'll say, that's what the hospital had named that road. You can check to see if it's an official town road, but it's different than Stonegate. And when most people put in their navigation 45 Hospital Road, they go to Stonegate. And so it's important that if an ambulance is coming to the hospital, that they know which road they're going to. And the main entrance is not Stonegate, it's the service road, and it's unnamed. There's no sign there. So that's my second recommendation for public
So
safety.
why would they put 45 Hospital Road?
That's the official address of the
So
hospital.
why, if we put a sign there, why wouldn't they still keep going to Stonegate on their GPS?
Well, what happens typically is some calls are then made, like, where am I going? And if I say, you need to be coming to the service road entrance,
Okay.
they don't know where that is.
Okay.
Even once they get there, they don't even know where that is. That's all. Yeah, I don't know how you could change that, Gus, as far as like, the official address that comes in when you try to use Google navigation. It's going to bring you to Stonegate, not to Service Road.
So where I was coming from is, should we change the official address so that the GPS picks the right place to send people?
Maybe.
It's a Chief Carrico question. He reviews all address changes for public safety, so I can
Yeah.
give him your recommendation.
That was the official address when it was
Yeah.
open as
Yeah,
Medfield
no,
State
that makes
Hospital.
sense, but-
And then the last thing I had with relation to this public safety is at the you have all driven in there, and right at the entrance to Service Road, when you turn to go into the hospital by the trailer, there's the big parking lot where the school buses park, and there's a small edge there between the pavement and the parking lot that constantly washes out from stormwater runoff that comes out of the property. And all of that washout material ends up right at the entrance. And I think it would be helpful if Public Works did some sort of more permanent fix of that erosion, because what I'm concerned about is somebody on a motorcycle is going to turn in there quickly, and that even when you come out of there, if you step on your brakes hard enough, you're going to glide right over that. It's like slick because of the buildup of gravel there from after every rainfall. You get another couple cubic yards of sand right at that entrance. So it does become quite slippery. So that would be my third recommendation as far as what we ought to have out in the front there. Those three.
Okay.
Okay.
Any
Good.
questions or comments for John and Pete?
It's a question more maybe for Christine. Don't all the cruisers have the AEDs in them?
They do.
Yeah, so that those, there was somebody that died, I guess, at the car show over the weekend, but I'm sure that the EMTs were there very quickly.
Yeah. Well, they had gone to the Stonegate.
I'm
They
sure-
needed to go to Service Road.
Our own ambulance didn't respond to the right place?
I believe so. That they ended up driving through the car show to get to the scene.
Well, that's bad.
We'll talk to Chief Carrico.
Okay. The last,
Go, Gus.
Anything
The
else?
only,
Yeah.
the only, to your point about the entrance, I assume the logical action at that is to refer to DPW and ask them what, if anything, would make sense to try to do. I understand what you're saying there. Half of me says, well, that's probably a it's probably not the best traffic calming technique, but
Yeah.
putting dirt at the end of a road probably tends to have motorcycle riders not go too fast as they go through. But it seems like the logical action on that one would be just to ask DPW to look at it and see if there's an easy way to
yeah.
cut the stuff is coming in from where the buses are parked, or it's coming in from the higher ground in front of the trailer?
Surface runoff coming down the road, and it's cutting a little
So it's not coming in
swath.
it's not coming in from either side.
No, it's
down the
coming
road?
down the road, and it always follows this track right between the pavement and the gravel, and it washes it out every time. And Public Works has gone up and fixed it a few times, and Malcolm has gone out and used the street sweeper. But I think it really needs a more permanent fix because that is really slippery. Come out and drive it. You'll see you know, how much gravel there is right at that little. Or the other.
I mean, I have, which I slow down
And my other
because I see
my
the dirt on the
other
road.
concern is a bike rider. So if somebody's riding a bike down Hospital Road and somebody's coming out and puts the brakes on fast, that car is going to go another 10 feet on that sand. So that's my thought there.
Well, anyway, it sounded
Okay.
to me like the action is to just ask DPW to look at it and
Yeah.
see if there's an easy.
That's fine.
I'm mindful of the fact that we're on the verge within the next year of selling the property, so I don't think we want
Yeah.
to do a major
No, I don't think
repave
it needs
job,
anything
but
major,
yeah,
Gus. I
yeah,
think they
okay.
might even use the chip seal across the street.
Yeah. Okay.
They could maybe flatten that. So next to last thing is I sent some brochures that we were considering using at these movies, some draft brochures. These would be handouts. So when somebody drives in, you give the person a handout with these brochures that have the hospital experience in the words of some of the patients and the staff people that work there. It's three paragraphs. It's 3 different brochures. We thought we would use them on different nights. They were developed as a result of when we first did Shutter Island there were some concerns raised about being sensitive to the past use of the hospital. And one of the persons that was concerned was a former Medfield resident who now is an attorney for the Disability Law Center in Boston. So I spoke with her and spoke with another attorney who used to work in the Clark building, incidentally, about how we could mitigate and bring the voices into it, because their motto is about us, with us. So if you're going to show a movie about something that's related to a mental health theme, then they need to be included in some way as their voice. And so this is what the Disability Law Center suggested to me as a way to help with that. By passing these brochures out to the public when they come in, they can at least read a little blurb by a former patient or a staff person. I don't know if you recall that the Fernald School had done something like Brett was organizing a Christmas lights display, and there was actually some protesting going on related to that. And so we wanted to avoid that. We want to include, I mean, I know several former patients, and a couple of them are in these brochures, willing to talk and very happy and had a really positive experience at the hospital. And they walk there frequently. They think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. But if it needs to be tweaked or you don't think it's a good idea, we can nix it.
Pete, questions?
Did you show your brochures to the people that had raised the issue?
Yes.
And they were okay with them?
Yes. Yeah, they were very happy that they were being asked to participate in it, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
That's enough for me then, I guess, if they're happy.
I have concerns. And I'd start by saying I actually think the brochures are very well done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the quality of them, and as brochures, I think we should hang on to them. My concern is this, that for me, I look at this and say, if we had a hospital museum, and the hospital museum talked about how this was designed, at the time it was designed, late 19th century, it was state-of-the-art thinking about how to structure a facility like this. It reflected, as barbaric as the techniques appear to us now, the things that were done there, at least professionally, were the best of thinking about what to do. The context in society was people didn't want, if they had someone in their family who had a mental challenge, the context was hide them. And I think you could tie that into the fact that this is a period of history where eugenics was prevalent. They taught it at Harvard University. And so you can picture people saying, gee, people will think this is genetic. Let's hide our family members. So there's a big, big story here. Mm-hmm. The thing that I pictured is people showing up for a movie and being given this brochure, which does not tell the story of the hospital. Yes, it's a voice of someone who went who was at the hospital. And each one of those stories in their own way both talks about what was good about it, but then there's a sad side of the story, what was not good about it. And I look and say, if it's somebody who has no clue about the state hospital, and they get this brochure and they read a real person's life story about what their experience at the hospital was, this was good, this was terrible, and that's all they learn about the hospital, and then they drive away, I don't think that's actually the message we want to be sending about the hospital overall.
Do you think it needs maybe a preamble or something that because
Well,
from everything I've talked with patients that were there,
Well,
and staff, Medfield State Hospital was probably the best in the state
yeah.
as far as treatment and recovery.
But what I'm getting at is, first off, not every, Shutter Island was a rather unique movie, and yes, the setting was deliberate, because it's where it would, not because let's do this movie at a former state mental hospital. It's like, let's show this movie at the set that we
Well,
used
right,
for the movie.
right.
That was why that happened. It wasn't,
Right.
let's go make fun of mental institutions in the late 19th century or even 20th century. But to me, the story for someone, but most people are going to go to movies that have nothing to do with that. They're going, let's go have a nice night out. And here's a brochure for you. Let me lay this kind of heavy story on you before the movie starts. Doesn't seem to me to be the right context for that. I wouldn't want to lose these brochures. I like them. But they're a piece of the story, and it feels to me like the story that somebody who doesn't know anything about the hospital should hear is what this hospital was, how at the time it did reflect the best. I mean, you just look at the hospital, I marvel at how is it that our governments back then could put the time and the money and the effort into designing something like this? Because right now we only pay for things that are totally utilitarian. There's like zero aesthetics to most of the things that we do. There's a lot of
And in
significance to
today's
it.
dollars, that it was a $25 million project.
And when people are pulling in to park and you say, look out over your back, over your back shoulder at the other side, and think about the 150 cows that were there. Think about how this hospital nearly provided for itself, and the people who were here were the ones who did it. To me, that's the story
Yep.
that someone who doesn't know anything about the hospital should get when they show up for a movie.
Yep.
That's not to say let's hide this. It's
Yeah,
just that
yeah,
this
I
is a more sophisticated
Well, do you
facet.
think we should try to, as I said, put some sort of preamble around it with more of that story? Because I can
I think
definitely,
that should be the
I can
story.
definitely write that.
I don't know, it's just
See,
a preamble.
the-
I don't know what a preamble would look like.
The piece that the Disability Law Center thought was important was that if you're showing movies that depict mental illness, then they need to be somehow represented there in front of those people. And this was their suggestion,
But-
really, of how to inform the people about the voices of the people that were there. It was an inclusive way of
But
bringing them
mostly,
into it.
those aren't the movies we're showing.
Well, they're showing The Shining in 2 weeks, and they are showing some movies that run along those themes, and it was really a way for us to be sure that it didn't turn into a problem as far as people understanding the connection, because I think a lot of people didn't even understand that Shutter Island was filmed there.
Well,
People
that would have been a better.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
90% of those people were from Boston,
Yeah.
not from this.
When I read them, and I'm serious, I do like them. They're great stories. But when I read them, I pictured myself not knowing anything about the state hospital, showing up for a movie on a Friday night, some cases with my kids, and my experience starts with the brochure that essentially is going to drag me down. And that was the piece that I hung up on and said, I don't think, right now we're trying to redevelop. If anything, we're trying to breathe new life into a hospital for a new purpose that facility at one time represented 50% of the population of the town and was
Sure.
integral to Medfield. We are trying to build something there now which will be an integral part of this town. And when I read these in this kind of stark context, that here's the thing, I don't think that's helping us with that image. I
Well-
don't think it's helping people really understand the
Sure.
full context
Well,
of the
maybe
hospital.
as a potential alternative, do you want to see a draft with as an alternative? I can run that by DLC, by the Disability Law Center, that we want to put more emphasis on the positive aspects of the hospital that are factual and.
Well, I think that's the
you know,
challenge.
Maybe we can do that.
yeah,
I mean, I can certainly write something like that.
I think that's what I'm looking, that to me is the stronger message.
Okay.
Given this set of circumstances,
Sure.
it's the better message for us to be sending. I'm not suggesting let's whitewash this.
Yeah.
I'm just
I know.
saying
I know.
the significance of it for someone who knows nothing about the hospital
Yeah.
is what it represented when it was built, what the people who were here, to me, it would be like if somebody says, oh, this was a state mental hospital. Well, yeah, it was, but it was full of people who were residents here, who were able to create a functioning community.
Right. Well, I spend half my day explaining that to people.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm well aware.
So that's,
well
but to
aware
me,
of that.
see what I'm getting at is, that's
Yeah.
to me, the first impression we should be forming.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, the full story should be told.
Yep.
So it's not that these are bad, I just, coming straight out the chute, it doesn't feel to me like it's the thing that's gonna have any kind of an uplifting impact on people,
So,
that's all.
should I tweak
Well,
it
that's-
and tweak
so-
it and come back?
So you've heard one opinion,
Mike, you're the,
third opinion.
I think it kind of depends on the context, right? I think where it depends on the context. Right? It may depend on the movie that you're showing, the extent you want to have some additional information about it, and whether it's in the form of a brochure or whether it's something that would go up on a website that somebody could scan a QR code with their phone to get more information about the hospital, more information about what they're seeing in the movie. You see that, I think, sometimes it can be useful and educational to have some context around what you're looking at. And because I would agree with Gus that if it's a movie that's really got no connection to the hospital other than it's being shown there, it's kind of an odd adjunct to the night, and it's also more work for the town to make sure they're handed out and dealing with the rest of it. But I think having something available, and I guess you can debate with Stephen King whether The Shining is a movie about mental illness or not. I think he would say it's a ghost story as he described it, but people can, there's a whole subculture of people who will tell you,
Yeah.
in great detail what that movie is really about. But we probably don't want to go down that route with that one. But I think having something available, and I like the notion of having a little more context around
okay.
what's there, because the history is a long one, and the buildings, which are sort of what's left there now, really date to the beginning of the process and not the end of the hospital time. So
That was the Clark Building.
yeah. I mean, so I would like to see a little more to them if we're going to have them. I agree with
Okay.
Gus. I thought the content was good. I think it's a useful piece of it. But I think if we're going to have that as part of it, we might need to do a little work each time
Yeah.
to kind of frame what it is.
Or as you said, maybe some kind of a link
Yeah.
to.
I can see that more easily, where
to-
there, we're not gonna get a
Sure.
museum up there,
Right.
but we sure could have a publicly available website that
Right.
talks about the hospital,
Right.
maybe the staff and the people, and then this stuff would go right in there as some real, because there is a subtlety to all three of these. It's not a
Yep.
question of a terrible story or just good story. It's like, you get the humanity of this.
That's
I
right.
like them.
Yeah.
They're
They're
Yeah.
great people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Suggestion, make it a 2-minute preview to the movie. Put it up on the screen, and you don't have to pass out brochures and worry about picking them up later, if you can make it short enough. Medfield TV, Gil Rogers, all these people have done.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
might-
I think, Nate Bazinet, thank you, also echoes the QR code to a website as a possibility. And I don't want to discount having brochures either, but I think to Bill's point, there's a lot of stuff that's out there that you can put in one place and
Yeah.
take people to, and then maybe if you did have I think Shutter Island is a perhaps singular example of
Yep.
a movie that's filmed there that also touches on
Yeah.
the issues of mental illness, where you'd have a particular
I think
Yeah.
Coolidge
Yeah.
would
of it.
do that. I mean, if we put a website at the beginning of their show, put that up there at the beginning, then people in the cars could see that, oh, I want to learn more.
Yeah.
We could do that too, and
Yeah.
they would do that.
Yeah,
So.
I think that'd be great.
Okay, I think that's
Great.
good exchange.
So my suggestion to you, John, is
Yeah.
that you regard your primary goal to satisfy the people that are raising the issue, which is the disability community, and so maybe satisfy the people from the Disability Law
Oh, I
Center
would,
and also the NAMI people.
Yes,
Um,
I'd continue to work with them
And,
on it.
and check if they care about this extra stuff that
Yep.
is being suggested or not. And
Okay.
I would sort of gear what I do to what they tell you would be best.
Okay. Last thing is, I am potentially working on a potential movie up there. So I'll keep you,
Say it again, please.
potentially working on another movie there. So I'll keep you posted on that. I think it's an October shoot.
All right.
So
But we missed out on the Fletch sequel, apparently. So.
That was at the Dover Sherburne High School?
I don't know if that's the same one, but I know
The sign said Marble. I don't know what that was, but
oh yeah, I don't know.
they were in
it's
Norwood,
like a little
too.
village
Yeah.
that they set
They
up in the
wanted,
parking
they
lot.
wanted an outdoor scene because Dover came to us to talk to me about our license agreement and how we decide to charge what we charge.
Yeah, excellent. Well, John, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
as
you very
always, and
much.
Thank you for all of your work
Great,
up at the
thanks.
hospital.
That-
And I think we'll reconvene, this might be an agenda item again on the 13th.
Correct.
So we can debrief from the meeting on Thursday and develop our approach to the next communication back to DCAM.
John's last point at least explained to me why we're dealing with an increase in the revolving fund total for the state hospital. No, what are we bothering with this for? We don't have any money.
Excellent. All right, next up, Megan Sullivan, Robert Winograd to discuss the community choice aggregation process and next steps. So we'll promote Megan and Bob. Hello, Megan.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Hi, Megan.
All right. So Bob and I are here to talk about community choice aggregation. As you know, we approved it at town meeting, so now we need to move forward. I have a screen I can share that just has a bit of an outline. And basically what I have for you tonight is just an overview of the MAPC suggested process, or the steps that we follow. Then the questions, which are really the who, what, where, of how we're going to go forward, and then recommendations for how we might do that. So let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we know we want to move forward, so we're bringing you this recommendation, and it's, I would say, a work in progress. Bob and I have been working with Nick, trying to figure out how we're going to go forward, and he's had a lot of good suggestions. So you can see that we've done the initial research, authorized the program. We're now at step 3, which is to issue solicitation for an energy broker. And really what we're doing now, I would say, is one of the most impactful things we'll do before actually designing our whole plan, is to choose the broker that we're going to work with. And there are generally three people who fill this role in the state of Massachusetts. So we're up to needing to choose between basically those 3 brokers for who we're going to partner with. And we'll partner with them from now, basically through our program, at least through probably an initial contract. So for several years. So we want to be very sure that we have somebody that we trust and want to rely on. So after we pick our broker, then we're going to develop our plan with the DOER. Here in town, that's a point where there's going to be a lot of, or chance for community input. Then we'll send the plan to the DPU. And this process here, it says 6 to 9 months. Lately, it's been taking people even 18 months to get through the DPU. But we're hopeful that it wouldn't take that long, but it might just take that long. And then you go out and you actually look for your supplier. And when the time is right, you're happy with the rates you get, Then you execute your contract, and then you start in on the process of notifying your customers who'd like to opt out. Then you enroll them, and then you monitor the market and annually provide reports. So that's essentially the phases of what's going on, right? So now we need to figure out who's going to do what and when, and then also talk about the process specifically about choosing the broker. Do you have any questions?
If you don't, Pete, I do. Megan, I don't know that you have answers to my questions here on the process, but let me try it anyway. The energy brokers, when I've had earlier discussions with you, it sounds like they're the people that are good at negotiating the supply contracts. Are they also advisors on how the plan should be designed? Is that why they're coming in so early in the process?
Yes, they come in early, they help you design the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, we think through all the iterations. What do you want to include? What might your phases look like, or your different options?
Yeah.
And then, but they're definitely a partner.
Okay.
When we hop in, and this is all. They do this without being paid up front, because they get paid when we actually start sending electricity to homes in Medfield.
Yeah, okay. And then the next step is developing the aggregation plan with the Department of Energy Resources. Does that, I'm trying to picture, does that mean that they have like a set of options and you toggle the options that we would want in this, I'm just trying to get a handle of what the issues are that would require the Department of Energy Resources to work with us to get to a plan.
Nick might have a better answer on this. I do believe they're just a really good resource, and they have a set of, requirements, and that they've done this before, and so they kind of guide you through this first part in conjunction with your broker, and then you go to the DPU.
Yes, there are phases that DOER will provide comments back on the draft plan just to kind of guide and make sure it meets the requirements that the state has set up.
What I think what I'm trying to get a handle of is what the real critical issues are. I know that there's different tiers, so clearly making a decision of what you want your tiers to be is going to be a decision. We know, from our discussions at least, we know how people will get into the plan, and we know what flexibility they have for getting out of the plan. And what I'm looking for is what are the other issues that require decisions, or is this more an administrative / bureaucratic thing, getting everything documented?
I think unfortunately it's more of that, because if you look a lot of the plans, they look mostly the same. It's just a few key decisions are different.
Okay.
So it is kind of interesting that these things take so long when a lot of the plans are pretty similar,
Yeah,
just with a few key differences along the way.
Right. Well, this part doesn't. It's only 2 months. Now that gets me down to the DPU. I guess I'm assuming that what's driving that 6 to 9 months or 18 months has to do with the fact that DPU is a regulatory agency, and therefore it has to put proper administrative documentation. And this is like an agreement, like any other agreement, might be on a much bigger scale. So that, again, the pure bureaucracy of it on the DPU side is what's driving the delay. Because I'm sitting there saying, I would think the state would want this thing to be done in 2 months.
I don't have a sense of what is taking so long. I think it would be one thing if we were, there were 5 communities doing it, but we're well beyond that, where I think half the communities in Massachusetts are already on. I don't know if, Megan, you have any input as to why we're seeing those lags at TPU?
No, I agree with what you've said.
Okay. Okay. I was just trying to understand what the exact challenges are that we're dealing with here, and it sounds like it has more to do with being legally and administratively compliant with what some legal and administrative state agencies require.
I think it may be a matter of their resources in light of the obligations they have across the boards.
Okay, those are my...
I think resources are a part of it, but also one of the things that's very important from a broker, it's going to be the communication that is more prevalent in the latter stages of this exercise of when we need to communicate with the public. And they'll be very instrumental in supporting that part of the program, which from the community's perspective is of course going to be most important.
Okay.
Good.
Keep going,
So-
Megan.
Okay, so then we need to figure out, as I said, the who, what, where, when. So we have a suggestion for the group structure where, again, we're open to your guidance, but Nick, Bob, and I have come up with the following suggestion, which is that you appoint a formal committee to run community choice aggregation now through basically implementation, would include the broker selection, the plan design, approval, supplier selection, community outreach, and implementation. And then ideally, when you get to the end of that, there's not much work, hopefully. We would suggest a smaller committee that starts with the three of us, Nick plus from the town, as well as 2 people from the energy committee. And then we would love to open this up and see if there's anybody else in the community who'd like to join us. The suggestion is to go directly to the Board of Selectmen, but it could also be under the Medfield Energy Committee. And then when we get to the point where we have an energy manager on staff, we would just love to be including them in our, I shouldn't say on staff, as a consultant, be including whatever expertise they have in terms of helping this move along. They might come with a lot of experience or not. So any thoughts on that?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because the energy manager is going to be a consultant, I wouldn't name them to the committee.
Right, no.
I would just have them, advise the committee.
Right. I mean, they would be doing work associated with that. So I think that's fine. I think having a small committee making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen is a good idea for this. It's a singular enough project that I think it deserves the focus of a small group of people, so I have no problem with that.
It's fine by me too. I think that, and we should invite the public to step forward if they want to join it.
I think,
Especially if you adopt
yeah.
our new board and committee policy tonight. We'll
Right.
advertise that for 2 weeks.
Yeah, one option would be to let people join if they want to join, but I'm not sure, given the nature of the work, whether you want a lot of people. What I'm saying is if it's primarily administrative, compliance, regulatory related, whether you need just a lot of people on the committee for the sake of having them there is probably not true. On the other hand, Bob, to your point, if from the standpoint of the challenge for the town is going to probably come in at the back end around communication and, building, getting the support or making sure that the people who are going to participate in this understand it. I can see, I'm sitting here saying, so if you were going to be thoughtful about what members of the, 1 or 2 members of the committee, of the community would you like to have on the committee? Because when the time comes to convince people in the general public that this is a good thing to participate in, who might be some good community members who would carry credibility as just members of the public? I think the idea of adding 1 or 2 community members, if you can find the right ones, mainly because you're looking all the way out to the end point of this, where it could be very beneficial to have a couple of community members that are, I don't know, whether persuasive or trusted, whatever you want to call it, that would be good influencers on the general public. That might be a good idea.
Gus, are you agreeing that 5 is a good number, or are you suggesting something else?
I'm saying I think 5's a good number with the 2 open slots you have there. If you only got 1 person that fit that, I think you could get the job done with 3. Maybe with advice from the consultant we have on and the energy manager. But I think 5 is a good number for a committee that has to do this kind of thing. So size-wise, yeah, that sounds fine, and I can see an advantage to bringing some members of the community in.
And our challenge becomes how do we find these 2 community members? And
Well,
this
I
is
think
where
we
we're
can advertise
hoping-
for them. If we don't have anyone interested, I think for purposes of what we have to do now, we have enough people to
Right.
do the work that has to be done to get the broker in place, to start the process.
Right.
And if other people get added over time, that's fine. So I don't think we have to sweat too much getting those people. We can advertise for the 2 weeks, and if anybody's interested, we can appoint the committee on the 13th to, because really the job initially is to evaluate the RFPs and make a recommendation to us about to whom the RFP should be awarded. And I think, even if we don't get anybody interested, I think the 3 people who are already committed to doing this are perfectly capable of doing this on your own, so.
Super. Shall we report directly to you?
Yes.
Okay. Super. Okay, so then we just wanted to also discuss the RFP process itself. We thought we would do a RFP and build on already existing successful RFPs from other towns, and then come to you on the 13th. If you would like us to come to you on the 13th for an approval of the RFP, so that we could actually put it out on July 15th.
Sounds good to
Would
me.
you like to see it, the RFP, or?
Yeah, we have to issue it, so it's got to come to us and be included in our meeting materials, and we'll vote to issue it, as with all RFPs we issue, so.
Okay, then we will be back to you for the 13th. So then the plan is to get it out on the 15th, have the RFPs back on August 6th, have interviews, in-person interviews with people the week of August 16th, and then bring you a recommendation by the end of August.
Great.
Sounds good to me.
Great. Anything else? Sounds like we have a plan.
Good plan.
All right. Well, we'll advertise for those 2 slots for additional members of this committee. We'll plan to put on the agenda for the 13th, appointing the members of the committee and issuing the RFP that night. And I think we're moving along. This is good. Anything else, Megan or Bob?
Thank you.
Yeah, Megan and Bob, just to the point about advertising for those 2 slots, do you guys want to draft a description of the kind of person you would like on the committee? I mean, it comes out from Christine, but we don't necessarily have to write this thing if you have an idea of the kind of, and Nick, this is a question for you, I think, as well, but if you wanted to draft what that announcement would be, I would think we'd be okay with that, right? If you don't want to, we have great creative writers.
We'll take care of it in-house.
Yeah, I think we
We'll
have,
take care of it.
we have this
Okay.
presentation that lists what you'll be doing.
Yeah.
And I think you can just put that, this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah, okay.
There'll be a
this
link
is
to
what
that.
you're up to, this is
Okay.
what you're doing, so. that's
If you
great.
have any examples of what such a write-up typically looks like, that would be helpful.
We do, so let me push the point a little further, because where my head goes with this is if I were on the committee, I would be sitting there saying, I want somebody out in the public who has an energetic interest in helping, this is my marketing hat on here, an energetic interest in helping Medfield move ahead in becoming, a more environmentally responsible community. And we're looking for members of the community that would like to join us in this effort. And we might not be quite as dramatic about it coming at the Board of Selectmen's level, but you might. So I was just asking the question. I wasn't trying to throw it at you.
Basically a 5-sentence type.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
write-up.
We can draft something and send it off to you. Would you like us to also draft a charter for the committee?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
Sure.
basically already have
Right.
it.
Yeah.
We basically already
Want
have
that.
what the committee's going to do, so that's great. Perfect. Thank you, Megan and Bob. All right,
Thanks.
next up, we
Thank
have discuss, review, and vote on town administrator goals for FY 2022, July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022.
So you should have all received them in the packet, and then I had sent out a draft a few weeks ago, and then we've made a few small changes since then. And we tried to take the goals that we had developed going into this year, as well as the ones that you talked about at the last meeting, and try and break them down into different categories. But if there's anything else you would like to add to this or edit, I'm more than happy to do that.
All right, Pete?
I think this is good. The one thing that I was thinking of was we've agreed to implement a plan to get us to net zero by 2050, and I wonder if that should somehow get woven into this somewhere.
As a town administrator goal?
Or a Board of Selectmen goal.
I think it's be more of a Board of Selectmen goal, because we have we've brought on this consultant to do the energy work. And we have an energy committee. It seems like it's more of an energy committee
Right.
and consultant work than
Yeah.
town administrator work.
Well, I guess if we had the sustainability manager running or overseeing the plan, that would work pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the,
Well, and then we just received a grant from MAPC to assist the Energy Committee in doing
Right.
that as well.
oh,
so-
great.
Right.
Gus, I
Yeah.
see a lot of
Yeah,
lot of
I got- well,
handwriting on
so-
Gus's goal. Just to-
I do,
Just,
I
just,
do,
just
but-
a warning to the general public: if you want to go out, if you're not that interested in this particular topic and you're waiting for something else, this would be a great time to get a snack, go to the bathroom. Maybe
the other
maybe
hand-
watch The Shining, because I see a lot of comments over on Gus's page here. So
On the other hand, if some of you are curious about the keen insight of one of the members of the Board of Selectmen, you may want to stick around. I had a number of comments. First off, the goals are fine. I mean, we have talked about these. I had some questions and comments, and so, and some of them even aren't for you. Under civic engagement, item C, provide all committee chairs with Town of Medfield email to improve archival processes. Great idea, we got ours. When you said we were going to get them, I think with the selectmen, it's appropriate to have it by name. My question, what occurred to me when we talk about emails for committees is whether the email should be the committee chair, not by name, because you're going to go nuts. Okay, so they'll be by position,
They'll be
not
by
by name.
position.
Okay, so that was
the
one.
Community Choice Aggregation Advisory Committee chair
There.
at Medfield.
Yes, yes, yeah. You brought up the summer intern program. Again, think that's a good idea, but I had questions. I just want to better understand what you're thinking. Is this a paid position?
It depends on how our budget situation looks. I'll make a recommendation to you as we start the budget process if we have some money available. Obviously, we're going to attract more candidates if we have a paid internship, and it may be the first year we start with an unpaid. We have had some volunteers in the past who have worked for us that weren't officially interns but volunteered their time in the office, and I think making a more formalized intern program will attract more people.
And this is year-round?
No, it would just be usually during the summer. We have had some interest from some high school students on breaks and after hours to do it, so we'll have to address that. But right now, I'm just envisioning summer.
Okay, so I'll leave that up. That's fine to leave that open-ended. My quick reaction was if we're paying, first off, it's not a bad idea for the town to be willing to hire some folks here in town, young adults here in town, and actually pay them for it. Parks and Rec does it. So the idea of having some roles for students to play here in town on the town administration side, I think is a good idea. So I'm actually receptive to the idea of making them paid positions, especially if it's a summertime thing. That makes sense. This one's a little more subtle. The purpose and the rationale here, is it because we think we can use interns to really help the town get its job done, or is it that we're doing it in order to give students in town the opportunity to see how the town works? And it's a priority thing for me. Are we doing this as a civic thing to help students better understand the town, or are we doing it because we've got some real ideas about how we could use interns?
So I think it's a combination of both.
Yep, okay.
There are some projects that we, from this list, you can see there are projects that we'd like to get to that we never really have a
Right.
chance to,
Yep.
that are small projects, could be taken on over the summer, which would be great for an intern.
Right.
I also think there's a significant number of people who are no longer going into public service. So having an insight into how government works, we won't let them come to selectmen's meetings because, they're just a little long. But overall, there's a whole, MMA's been doing this recruitment because they can't get people to go into local politics and local things. So I think that giving people an insight as to what we do inside the town hall on a daily basis would help with that as well.
So between those two, I like the answer. Between the two, I think it's important for the internships jobs to have a real purpose.
Yes.
So it's not just tour the town, it's real purpose, and in the course of doing that, you're going to learn how we work.
And I think we will. I think we'll have no trouble finding projects for interns to do, helping.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that-
yeah, yeah,
Committees,
no, I
helping-
agree.
There's gonna be work for them to do, and I think.
Having been an intern stuck at a copier before, interns need projects.
Right.
But I think we always have a bunch of projects that we'd like to get to, and that there's only so many hours in the day for our
Right.
relatively modestly sized staff to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think to the second point, opening some people's eyes to
Yeah.
working in government administration as a career, I think is a good thing. I think it might be attractive to people who wouldn't have thought about it otherwise, if they actually get to see what you do on a daily basis.
I have a parenthetical comment about B, which is continue and improve the effectiveness of committees by ensuring they have updated charter documents. I think we have some issues we have to talk about around what the charters are for
Correct.
Board of Selectmen appointed committees. That's not your job, that's ours, but as I was reading your thing, it was like, well, it's almost hard to do that if we don't have those discussions. So I think we have to have those.
We have to finish the implementation of that
Yep.
policy we adopted a couple of years ago.
This one's a thought, and I'm happy to hear Mike and Pete react to it. Under Goal 4, Grounds and Open Space Maintenance, I put a D. I wrote a D in there, and I'm not hung up on it if everybody thinks it's a bad idea. Explore the advisability of establishing a Buildings and Grounds Department.
So I think that's the second step of this. I
Okay.
think doing A, B, and C gets us to
Okay.
D.
Okay.
My issue with not putting it on there, and it's been on and off this whole time, is that I don't think we can get all of that done within the year.
All right. Then I'm-
And that would be the second phase, once we come up with this plan.
That's fine. I'm
FY
good with that.
2023 goals.
23, it's
That's
already on
fine.
the list.
Okay. Then under long-term financial planning, I have an item C, review the current town budgets for, quotes, embedded capital. And where I'm coming from is we've established these reserve account, reserve funds for capital spending, done it first for buildings, and ultimately we have one for equipment. If we didn't have those things before, then there's money that's been in our budgets that covered that stuff. So if we're establishing these to the extent that we have money in the budgets that's just there, it shouldn't just be an automatic windfall now that it's not covering capital. Item 6, goal communications. You have increased level of communication between the Board of Selectmen and department heads. The second half is identify and improve website navigation to make it clear to understand and easier to navigate. I think those are 2 goals, not 1 goal. This is a question probably for Pete and Mike. Item A under 6, quarterly update reports to BOS from Police Chief, Fire Chief, and DPW Director, other departments as requested. As I thought about would we request them, I'm wondering whether we want to ask for semi-annual reports from Parks and Rec, COA, and Outreach. And the reason I group those together is those are sort of services that our town is providing that maybe are not core services like public safety. We don't need quarterly reports, but there are times, like you and I have talked, Christine, right now I have no clue what Parks and Rec is thinking about in terms of where it wants to go. I hear lots of talk about building here, building there, putting stuff here, and I have no idea what they're thinking about their program. But I don't think it has to be quarterly. It's like, maybe it's annually, but so that was just an example. Item C, create the new welcome section on the website with basic information for new residents. I'm good with that. The question I have, and this is just something to think about, would it make sense to have a page that focuses on topics that the general population might be interested in? And the sorts of things that I'm thinking of is, how are my real estate taxes determined? These are just information pages on the town website that are, I want to call them frequently asked questions, but it's actually more like frequently wondered about issues. What's OPEB? How much debt does the town have? How do I access town open spaces? And those are off the top of my head. So I don't think I'm not trying to get you to add it necessarily as an explicit goal, but I actually think as we think about the welcome section, maybe we also want to think about what are these things that
questions.
you'd almost say that townspeople should know, but they don't. And we can put that in there. That's it.
Nope, I like that.
Pete, anything? Any response or?
Well, I think some of those last things about the resident FAQ, basically, some of those are things that the MMA should be doing for all the towns. Some could be very Medfield specific, and I think that we should try to focus on those maybe.
And some of that is actually on the website, but you'd have to dig around a little
Right.
bit.
So you have to go to each individual department to
yeah.
find that out, but we
Right.
can put that into a,
As much as anything, I'm reacting to some of the comments that keep coming in on Facebook, and it's like, no, it's not just what your, valuation is. Your taxes didn't go up 35% when your valuation went up 35%.
Right.
It's that kind of stuff. It's.
Yep.
So
Okay,
in
so,
terms of amendments to the goals, I'm fine with Gus's amendments. I mean, some of them are just comments on the goals. So do we want to adopt these provisionally, and then we can look at the final one next time, but say that with the additions discussed, these are the goals for FY 20?
Or if you want to I can
I'll
just
take
give you
that.
this.
That would be
and
great.
then, You'll have to filter that with what we just discussed to know which things are real
Okay.
and which things are going away. But I trust you. I don't have a problem with your goals as they are. So my comments were around maybe making them better without necessarily trying to make them more
And I
complicated.
think the only one that I wrote down that was an explicit addition was the C under long-term financial planning, which is to review the budgets for embedded capital.
Yeah.
I think that's, and then the addition to the semi-annual reports for the Council on Aging
Yeah.
and Parks and Rec and Outreach. I think those are the two that I wrote down as maybe explicit additions. Peter, are you good with those being added?
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so how about we'll have a motion to adopt the goals with those two as added, but then we've got additional guidance to Christine on the goals. So do we have a motion?
So I move that we adopt the annual performance goals that Christine submitted with the addition of the two modifications or additions to those goals that we discussed here, with Christine, I think, revising the final goal list based on our discussions.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No? All right, it's been adopted. All right, another item where we can actually do something on time in advance of the deadline. We have our vote on annual individual appointments. I'm sure we'll be excited to know that we will have for another year a measure of wood and bark, a field driver and fence viewer, and that those positions will not be unappointed for the year. I think, Christine, you had mentioned there was one spot here you wanted us to defer.
I think if we can defer the Norfolk County Advisory Board, I think in reviewing the role of the person on the advisory board as a representative for Medfield, it's going to be very important, especially as we begin the ARPA discussions with the Norfolk County Advisory Board. So I will talk to each of you about maybe it should be a selectman or it should be somebody from the warrant committee to represent the town in those discussions.
Okay.
I would offer to do it, but you have to be a resident of Medfield in order to do that.
All right. And it was suggested this would be Mo.
So it was Mo previously, and then it was given to Bobby Kennedy, and then in reviewing some information sent out by the Norfolk County Town Administrators, we decided to hold that, and it's changing, at least for this year. I think the focus will change from the operations of the county to the dissemination of that ARPA money, so.
Okay. All right. So then do we have a motion to approve, to make the annual appointments with the exception of the representative to the Norfolk County Advisory Board?
I move that we approve the appointment of the individuals listed on our agenda with the exception of the Norfolk County Advisory Board position.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? No. Appointments are made. Congratulations to all. All right, next item, to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Medfield Permanent Firefighters Association Local 4478 IAFF AFL-CIO for July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022.
Correct, and you're actually approving and voting to sign as well.
So any comments or questions on this one, Pete?
No.
Gus?
No.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve and vote to sign the collective bargaining agreement with the firefighters?
And this signature is all three selectmen, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with Medfield Permanent Firefighters Association Local 4478, IAFF, AFL-CIO for July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022, and authorize the Board of Selectmen to sign that agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes. Next, authorize me to sign the civil service paperwork for Connor Ash's promotion to sergeant. We've already made this appointment.
You made the appointment. This
Yeah.
is just the paperwork notifying civil service that he has changed from a patrol officer to a sergeant.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we authorize the chairman to sign the civil service paperwork for Connor Ash's promotion to sergeant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next, vote to sign a 3-month contract extension with the Natick Walpole VNA for community health education and public health nursing services.
So as you know, we approved at town meeting to transition to a full-time public health nurse. We are in the process of getting ready to advertise that. We're reviewing the job description. Our existing contract with Natick Walpole VNA expires June 30th. So I worked with them to do a 3-month extension to get us through hiring.
Okay.
They are very open to extensions if we need it, or if they would like us to have them stay on. If we hire that person at the end of the 3 months, they would be willing to stay on for another month to help that transition as well.
Okay.
All right, any questions? Pete?
No.
Gus?
Nope.
Nothing from me. Do we have a motion?
I move that we sign the 3-month contract extension with Natick Walpole VNA for community health education and public health nursing services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, vote to adopt new board and committee appointment policy. Any comments or discussion on this, Pete?
No.
Gus?
This one I don't think I saw until.
Oh. All right, well, let's defer this until the next,
We
if Gus
defer it
didn't
and
see
then-
it. We'll defer this to the
Yep.
13th.
Okay.
All
And
right.
this does not get at the charter scope.
No.
Okay.
Nope, that's your existing committee structure policy.
Okay.
So we'll defer this to July 13th. Next week.
Did I miss that, or was that new tonight?
It was added over the weekend, so.
Okay.
So now we vote to approve fiscal year 2021 appropriation transfer requests. And do we do these one by one?
Warrant committee did them all at once, so I
Okay,
think that's
well,
fine.
I will
But if you'd like
follow
to do
the
them
lead
individually,
of the
that's
warrant
fine as
committee. Nope.
well.
I do have one quick question on
Sure.
that. Is the transfer station transfer, is that a legitimate COVID expense? And if it is, do we have it recorded that way?
So we have applied everything we can to COVID in relation to this.
Okay.
These additional ones are
Okay,
our own
okay.
budget, yeah.
All right, okay.
All right, so we have fiscal year 2021 end of year appropriations requests. For those of you watching at home, I think it's in the last month of the fiscal year, we're permitted to transfer. Is it up to 5%?
I don't think there's a limit anymore with municipal modernization.
All right, so we're permitted to transfer funds from one approved budget item to another to address unexpected expenditures. It's got to be approved by the warrant committee and the Board of Selectmen. So I'll just read off what we're doing. If anybody has questions, comments, or what have you, if you're on the Zoom, put them in the chat or raise your hand, Bill or John. So 7,500 transfer from workers' compensation to liability insurance to cover liability insurance deductibles and endorsements. Transfer from cemetery salaries to cemetery operations, $4,000 to address an increase in burial services over the past fiscal year. Transfers from highway operations to tree salaries for $500, highway operations to tree operations for $2,500 as a result of multiple windstorms requiring tree work. Equipment repair operations to solid waste salaries, $8,000 additional staffing for COVID precautions. Equipment repair operations to solid waste operations to correctly allocate transfer station costs in the solid waste budget, $35,000. Facilities operations to facilities salaries, additional OT for facility staff during fiscal year 21, $3,900. And fire salaries to fire operations, higher than anticipated expenses due to employee turnover and equipment repairs, $10,000. So any questions, comments, discussions from the board? I don't see anything from the public, so we'll take a motion to approve these. And then do I sign these?
I think it's just the chair.
Yeah, so I guess approving the transfers and authorizing me to sign.
Yeah, it's just-
So I move that we vote to approve the FY 2021 appropriation transfer requests that were just called out by Chairman Marcucci.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, a vote to increase the FY 2021 Medfield State Hospital revolving fund expenditure limit from $100,000 to $115,000.
So this is a budget that is approved at town meeting. You set the expenditure limit. It's one of the first warrant articles we do. We set the expenditure limit for the revolving funds. We are just about at that $100,000 mark, so it requires permission from the warrant committee and the Board of Selectmen to increase that. Otherwise, you're no longer allowed to spend from the revolving fund, and we still have a few weeks left of expenditures.
Okay. And we have the money in the revolving fund.
Correct.
All right. Pete, any questions?
Nope.
Gus? All right. Motion?
I move that we vote to increase the FY 2021 MSH revolving fund expenditure limit from $100,000 to $115,000.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, vote to accept the resignation of Robert Egler from the Conservation Commission effective July 1st, 2021. Motion?
I move that we accept the resignation of Robert Egler from the Conservation Commission effective July 1st, 2021.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And also, with our thanks, I mean, he also has done a lot of work, I know, over the years when we've had to submit our open space and recreation plan
Absolutely.
over time. So we thank him for his time on the commission and for the work he's done on that plan. It's a pretty massive undertaking to put that together. It's a very long document that we do
are
every 5
one of the
years.
few- Yeah, we're one of the few towns that have done it with all volunteers. Most towns hire a consultant to have it done, so they've done an incredible job.
Yeah, so thank you to him, and I think consistent with this policy we may adopt, we should send him a thank you letter for his service in the Conservation Commission. And I assume we'll deal with replacements and the rest at our summer
We'll announce that the next.
commission appointment. Great. All right, next up, authorize the town administrator to sign the VFIS 111F insurance renewal for police and fire employees. Any questions, comments? Pete?
This is a whole sort of separate insurance policy just for the police and fire. This doesn't pertain to other town employees?
No,
apparently.
public safety employees are not covered under workers' compensation,
Okay,
so they're covered under a 111F policy, and that's why we get this insurance.
all right.
So this is our annual renewal.
And if I read the, if I read the table right, this picks up a new dimension of insurance. If I compared, it looked like it was pre-cancer.
So we're not taking that plan. We're taking the first column, which is the
Oh.
83,234.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay,
Even though we said we weren't interested, they still quoted it just in case we changed our mind.
okay.
Got it.
I was thinking I was looking from year to year,
Yep.
and, okay, got it.
All right, we have
Okay.
a motion?
I move that we authorize the town administrator to sign the VFIS 111F insurance renewal for the police and fire employees.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next, approve the contract with Select Energy for fiscal year 2022 for solar services for the public safety building and the wastewater treatment plant solar installations. Anything on this, Christine?
This is a operations and maintenance contract for the two installations that we have. They come out, they do annual maintenance, and then they come out as needed on an hourly basis if there are any repairs necessary.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Pete?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, we have a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Select Energy for fiscal year 2022 solar services for the public safety building and the wastewater treatment plant solar installations.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? All right, it passes. Next, approve licenses for access to Medfield State Hospital grounds for non-invasive due diligence in response to the request for proposals for the Medfield State Hospital property.
So we have a request from somebody interested in responding to the RFP to put noise meters up at the state hospital. They're concerned about some noise from the gun range across the street. So if it's okay with you, we will do a license agreement with no fee, mainly to ensure that we are not responsible for any equipment that they put up on site.
So this is just one
Right now,
developer?
there's just one.
There's one request right now. We did notify interested firms that if anybody else, to make sure everybody had the same opportunity, that they had to put a request to me in writing by next Wednesday.
Okay.
So we'll see.
So was this, I'm just curious from the RFP development standpoint, I think we had anticipated developers might want to be able to enter buildings and look, this is not doing that.
No, and we reiterated that we won't allow back access to buildings at this stage. That would happen at a later stage.
Okay, okay.
Scheduled due diligence in RFP from like April 2022. It's like 120 days after
Yeah.
December.
All right, it sounds
Okay.
reasonable to me. Pete, Gus, anything else?
Nope.
No, fine.
All right, we have a motion.
I move that we approve, now it says licenses, but there's only one.
Right now, there's only one, but it has till next Wednesday, so if you can
Okay.
authorize me for any of these that come in before
Okay.
then.
I move that we approve licenses for access to Medfield State Hospital grounds for non-invasive due diligence in response to the request for proposals for the Medfield State Hospital property.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Next, we have, microphone, please, and identify who you are and where you live. One of those big fuzzy ones.
One of
that they
those
can kind of
flexible. Yeah, just a quick comment. If they could notify me when that's happening so that I can watch this equipment if it's sitting there, have people that, my volunteers that drive through, because I want to know where it is so that if I see somebody carrying it to their car who's not authorized to be carrying it away. Okay. Thanks.
Also need to know if they're gonna put it anywhere where DCAM's gonna be, have shut down an area or
Right.
something like that for transportation.
Yeah. They're going to run 100 dump trucks out of there for that excavation, so that's going to be loud.
All right. Thank you, John. Next, approved contract with Shady Tree Landscaping and Irrigation for lawn mowing services for the Medfield State Hospital grounds for 2021. How much is this for, Christine?
24K.
This is $24,493, and this is the remainder of the year, grounds maintenance through November of '21.
Questions or comments, Pete?
No.
Gus?
Nope.
Motion.
I move that we approve the contract with Shady Tree Landscaping and Irrigation, Inc. for lawn mowing services for the Medfield State Hospital grounds for 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right, next, we have meeting, nothing on the consent agenda. Meeting minutes to approve. Anyone have any comments on these meeting minutes?
I think so going down the list, I had editorial changes that I sent to Christine for the May 12th meetings, but they were nothing substantive, purely
Nothing, no.
editorial. On June 28th, there were some inserted revisions. I'm sorry, July 28th. Okay, but I inserted some revisions there, and I think they probably also were editorial.
They were, yeah.
Yeah. September 1st, I already talked with you on some changes there, and September 15th, September 15th, 2020, middle of page 4, per se should be spelled P-E-R space S-E, not P-E-R-S-A-Y. And March 9th, I was okay with Christine's revisions on those, so there was a set that came there. And I was okay with all the rest.
Pete, anything?
I had a couple name changes that I sent along to Evelyn and to Chris, and then there was another change about the fact that I was not the moving party to suggest a committee to do the name change committee.
Okay. All right. Are we good with those corrections? Can we get a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
Yes, I move that we approve the meeting minutes for May 12th, 2020, July 28th, 2020, September 1st, 2020, September 15th, 2020, January 5th, 2021, January 19th, 2021, February 2nd, 2021, February 9th, 2021, and March 9th, 2021, as revised and identified in our discussions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Town administrator updates.
I just note that we'll be closed on Monday for observance of the 4th of July holiday.
Okay. Next meeting dates, our next meeting date is actually July 13th, 2021.
Yes.
And then we have 3 meetings in August. All right. Selectmen reports. Pete.
Yeah, just as a point, the August 31st, I won't be able to make. I'm going to be out in Salt Lake City that week, and I'm actually tied up that Tuesday night. So either do it shorthanded, or I'm not sure that we need a third meeting in August anyway, but
Could you do the 24th?
yes.
Could you do the 24th, Pete, of August? You can't.
I can't.
All right. We'll hold off on that for now. We'll come back to that.
It's my 25th wedding anniversary.
Well,
Problem B.
I'd
Well,
like to see a 25th.
well, that's
I
true
know
though.
yours.
You'll have
I
to.
know.
So 7
I
a.m.
think the 25th might be Board of Selectmen meeting, because I spent my 21st anniversary at an Affordable Housing Trust meeting. So you work your way
Well,
up.
I spent,
And I'm currently celebrating my wife's birthday here with you all. So, but yeah, we'll find a different date in August to meet.
I
was here
spent
on
the
his
20.
47th anniversary.
That's how Cindy was celebrating.
If
though.
it was the 24th or the 26th, it would be no big deal. It just happens to
Well,
be the
we can
25th.
look at, we don't have to necessarily meet on a Tuesday either.
Yeah,
There's
we can
nothing
pick
that- So
another
we can
day.
find a different date
Yeah.
over the course of those. I think we are likely to need a third meeting in August. So let's find a date. But for now, July 13th, August 3rd, and August 17th. Selectmen reports. Pete?
The Medfield Foundation Legacy Fund Committee met last night, and we're going to start working with Mike Rogan's marketing group. Medfield Coalition for Suicide Prevention and the MCAP have both met. Attended a forum by the Energy Committee that was done in concert with the MEA, and that's it.
Gus?
Both Pete and I were at two different Eagle Courts last Saturday, and they were both went fine. One was at the Pavilion at Rocky Woods, and the other one was out at the Community Church in Medway. We sent your regrets, and it was clear that many scout leaders appreciate the efforts that you put into coaching various teams for your kids. So you clearly get through that. But anyway, good.
We lost the 2 games by a combined score of 28-2 that day. So I regret missing the Eagle Court of Honor as well.
But anyway, the Eagle Courts went well. The MSA had a webinar. I don't know if either of you did it last week. It was on municipal policing on the 16th of June. I actually thought it was a pretty good webinar. The Arlington police chief, he's retired police chief. He's been active, and it's got to do with trying to figure out how to get police. It's not particularly our community that's got the challenges, but basically trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between police departments and the people that live in their towns. And I just thought it was an informative presentation. Went well. I think, Pete, you already mentioned, I think the same Zoom meeting that the Energy Committee had on climate change. That was a good meeting. And then the other thing I've done is I signed up. The MMA has a series of webinars that they're doing, and it gets at this issue around equity, racial equity, and what it means. And there's so much that's being discussed around various issues having to do with race and equity, social justice, environmental social justice, that I basically said, all right, I'm gonna sign up, and I want to listen. This is put on by the National League of Cities. To be honest, I have some reservations about some of the stuff that's being pushed, but I'm there to listen. I'm trying to understand how this whole conversation is unfolding, and it's at least interesting. There have been 2 sessions so far, and there's supposed to actually be an in-person town hall held in various districts, so that could be interesting. As you know, I don't mind voicing my opinions at times, and this may be one of those opportunities.
That the talk that you and I sat next to and listened to at the MMA annual meeting,
Yeah.
by the man from the National League of Cities
Yeah.
about this issue of
Yeah, and that was
justice,
right.
and I was surprised at how cogent and intelligent it was. And I think that Arlington, but I think he was the one that said that he had come to Massachusetts basically in response to being invited by
Right.
Arlington. Arlington seems to be doing all kinds of good things in terms of, because I know that the MMAs often put them forward for
Right.
their budgets, their financial issues at meetings that I've attended. So.
Right. Well, I think there's some broad issues around this whole thing, but as many conversations as I've listened to, it's like, all right, you gotta step back and you gotta listen, be sure you understand the parameters, so that's why I signed up. And then I tried to go to the car show on Sunday, and did it always end at 2 in the afternoon? It was so hot.
It used to go 9 to 4.
That's what I thought,
But I
yeah.
think given the weather prediction, and he wasn't sure because he hadn't had a long time to advertise it, that he asked
Right.
to only go till 2.
Right. So anyway, by the time we got there around 2:20, there were about 15 cars left, but they half of them probably drive by my house anyway, so I got to see a lot of them. That was, unfortunately, I was kind of sorry I missed it, though. That's it.
All right, I don't think I have anything. School Building Committee is meeting tomorrow night again to go over the construction estimates and potential adjustments to some engineering pieces of it, and I believe that is all I have for stuff, other than to wish my wife a happy birthday, and I will be home shortly. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
There were a lot of items, but we got through them.
We picked up the pace. We picked up the pace in the back end, yeah. I read this article, speaking of picking